Let's talk about the next time you would have ran into Dusty. I don't think you guys would have crossed paths again until you went to work for WCW in 1996. At the time, he was working as an announcer, and I'm sure he was helping in some capacities backstage. But did you have much of a relationship in your first WCW run with Dusty? What can you tell us about that?
Now, look, during, we'll call it from that 87, 88, 89, from time to time, I would get, I don't say feelers. Hey, man, Dusty'd love for you to come make a TV. Literally, those are the words I heard from different folks of, and I don't know if that was a gig at my dad or he really was interested or a combination of the both. But so when I saw Dusty for the first time in WCW, it's as if, but look, again, him and my father had a history, him and Lawler. We didn't have to really break the ice, Conrad, because at this point I'd started, worked the territory 5, 6, 7 years, went up to Vince, had call it the Double J IC run. By the time that I got to work with him at WCW, I had an established career. Not saying a long one, but at this point I'd been making the towns 10 years. So we immediately hit it off. But his position in at this point obviously wasn't what it was in the prior years. But I mean, that was our first working around each other during this time.
So let's talk about 2001. This is when you actually get an opportunity to work with Dusty. And we've covered some of this in the archives, but when you come back for your second run in WCW, you're not the same performer. You're now, instead of being somewhere in the middle of the card in that US title picture, now you're the chosen one and you're the world champ. You're in the main events, and you somehow, some way find yourself doing promos and sharing a ring with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. I know we've talked about it in the archives, but I'm so glad you got to do this. Like, what a legend, what an icon. Did it feel that way at the time, or was the craziness of WCW sort of overwhelming and you couldn't really put perspective on it?
No. I did not lose sight of that like at all. I think to kind of, in my world, which is my brain, we just touched on 96, but we've already jumped ahead 4 years. And in a lot of ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, during that Attitude Era, Dusty was a color commentator, right? He really,
yes.
Kevin Sullivan was the booker, and obviously Eric and all that. But Dusty did commentary, Nitro Thunder. What was his kind of? Help me out, because I'm going somewhere with this.
Well, so you see right there, Tony's the play-by-play guy, and he's flanked by a baby face color guy and a heel color guy.
Yep.
Maybe these days, we would say Dusty was like Taz, and he was the analyst.
Yep.
But that's sort of the 3-man booth that we all grew up with, and sort of peak WCW. I think most people think of Dusty Rhodes, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I say that, when I get to the China match and I go to WCW and we're off and running, and for lack of a better word, the Russo style TVs were and a ton of new talent. It was the Millionaire Club, and we don't need to rehash everything, but we'll just say the Millionaires Club, a lot of new talent, fast pace, moving at the breakneck speed, all the stuff that was going on, me and Flair's opportunities. So, Conrad, would this be, what was the June of 2000?
January of 2001 is what we're talking about when he comes back.
That's what I say. Okay, so I've been there over a year and a half.
You've been there since late 99, and now we're in January of 01. Dusty comes back on Nitro in Baltimore. Huge pop.
The reason I say all that is this. There had been so much craziness with an influx of talent. and I'll say this as diplomatically as possible, who's over and not, including me, who's over and who's not over, who's, what's it's Shock TV and switching titles. And look, I'm not justifying or I'm not criticizing. It was what it was. But by January of 2001, me getting to work with Dusty Rhodes, who is over, like, he's a legend. I mean, no doubt about it. He's you don't have to do anything. B, he can tell a story with a microphone, regardless of what's given to him from creative. And C, in my brain, are you kidding me? Me and Dustin, we go back to the Texas days, late 80s. I'd worked with him as Goldust and Double J. I'd worked with him, around him, all this kind of stuff. So when it was kind of, here's kind of what we're doing, Conrad, it wasn't just a bucket list. Hell yeah, I get to do this. It was such a relief that, all right, if you've got Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Dustin Rhodes as a part of this, we're going to have a hell of an entertaining segment. That's how I looked at it. I mean, it was such, I'll say, a relief. I was excited because there was many a time that I'm like, all right, I'm going to run the play and control what I can control. And we've talked about that here on the pod over and over and over during the WCW run. On this, there was a ton of excitement. With all the craziness going on, it was still, all right, man, let's go have fun.
Let's just put in perspective where we are here in early 2001 with where WCW was. Nitro started before Monday Night Raw. So normally when Raw would start, you would see 600,000 to 1 million people change the channel. Off goes Nitro. Here we come Monday Night Raw. When Dusty Rhodes is on the screen, when he comes back here in Baltimore, January 29th, 2001, 78,000 people switch over to Raw. Not 600,000, not 1 million people, only 78,000. That to me speaks to the star power of Dusty Rhodes, maybe more than anything else. Like, where fans are conditioned in droves, hundreds of thousands, sometimes 1 million, to change the channel, because no matter what's on WCW, it ain't going to be as good as what's on Monday Night Raw. I'm switching the button, I'm hitting the clicker. And when Dusty's there, only 78,000 do that. That's remarkable, don't you think?
Yes, it's remarkable. But if you really know history, and I'm not talking about TV rating history, I'm talking about the industry from generations and generations. And it's like, kind of, and I don't want to, no, this is appropriate. They're going to rabbit hole. I can remember my old man in his office, and I'm sitting there. You can call it a random Tuesday afternoon before I go to Louisville, or Wednesday afternoon in Evansville, or Thursday before I go to the spot show, or whatever. But sitting in his office, waiting on my old man to get done with his call so we can talk about what's going to happen in the town tonight. But him talking to Jackie Fargo, literally, Conrad, about gambling, about football, about this old story or that old story. I mean, just talk. I felt like for hours about absolutely nothing. I'm biting my lips saying, come on, Dad, I got to get on the road. Would you just shut up and ask Jackie what you got to ask him? But my dad went into that investment of the call. And Conrad, I'm sure you've done this many, many times in your line of work. The only reason he was on that call was, hey, Jackie, can you get your buddy over there who shoots your interviews? And I'd love it for it to be about 3 minutes. Don't give me no 90 seconds. And if you want to talk 3.5, go on that. But my dad would get Jackie Fargo, the established legend, to send it into Memphis TV, to let it air, to sell Nashville, whatever it was, because my old man knew that's the power of the legend being on your TV and to promote your town. It's the exact same philosophy we're talking about with Dusty. People knew him, but they also, the equity in his brand, if you will, I'm about to be entertained. I'm not changing the channel.